My ass hurts. It's been a long one.
Mine too.
Oh, yeah, I need to stretch my
but
legs.
for different reasons.
My arthritis. So, do you like that James Bond reference to him having sex with men more than you cared to admit?
Something just fell, and I don't even know where it came from or what it did.
Oh, you weren't making a joke?
It was like metal falling, and I have no idea where it came from. That is so weird. Anyway. Everyone, and welcome.
Hey, everyone.
To Why Are You Still Here? You know it. You love it. No, you don't. Anyway, that joke will never get old for me because it's not a joke. It's real. Anyway, as we promised, we're doing this part 2. Not really. It's just like another edition of Forcing Fandoms. This time,
this one
a copyright strike
is Brandon's pick. Yeah.
Indeed.
Anyway, it was Brandon's turn, and it's gonna be a tough one to top, guys. Ooh, there we go. Very nice.
Yeah.
So Brandon does have a nice history with the franchise.
Yeah. So we obviously you may or may not have watched our prior video or Forcing Fandoms Toy Story. And, I started it off, obviously came up with this idea. I felt like I had to be the one to do what I was saying first. It didn't feel right to be like, well, I have this idea. Now it's time for you to watch 6 movies. I'll do mine in a few weeks, that kind of thing. So I was like, okay, I will watch Toy Story. You love Toy Story. I'm very indifferent about all of them except the first one. And, I watched it. I took notes. We did a show. We talked about it. If you want to know my thoughts on Toy Story, go watch that episode.
Check it out.
And so I was like, well, something that I'm very passionate about that Lucas really surprised me. I got to be honest with you. Really had very little experience with, if any at all, is James Bond. So that was, of course, going to be the Forcing Fandoms onto him. And it started off with just a conversation we were having one night where I was showing you pictures of my certain collections that I have. And I showed you a picture of some of my James Bond stuff. And your response was like, huh, you really like James Bond, huh? Everything
sure
else
just like that.
You were so like, you were loving it. You were like, oh my God, look at all that Halloween stuff. I love it so much. And then that was your reaction to the James Bond stuff. And I was like, what? Like it shocked me.
Clearly.
So yeah,
hasn't seen them.
That little seed was buried in my head, only to resurface later on, I guess. So I suggested 6 movies. It was, in my opinion, it was the best movie of every actor. To reiterate, it was Goldfinger.
Hold on, I want to say it because I know every title. Okay. It's Goldfinger, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, The Spy Who Loved Me. Then we move on to what's the next one? It's a License to Kill, GoldenEye, and then Skyfall.
Yep. Good job. Yeah. So those were the ones. So obviously, with George Lazenby, it's just one movie. Luckily, it's a very good movie though.
So it's been really good. So the one thing I did want to mention, I mentioned it in our special features episode, was that I did end up purchasing the whole franchise of these spy movies. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. Hold on. I'm sorry. You like that one, guys?
You were planning that for so long.
Yes, I was. Went and got them all, you guys. And then I got the ones available on 4K in 4K. So there they are. So
beautiful. It was a successful forcing Fandoms,
yes.
apparently.
Yes.
And now you're going and eventually checking out the rest of the franchise. But yeah, I love it. And it was difficult for me, honestly, to come up with some of the movies for you to watch, because when it comes to people like, you know, Sean Connery, Pierce Brosnan, Daniel Craig as well, Roger Moore a little bit as well. He had so many movies, 7 of them, I believe, that I was like, well, is this really the best one? I guess so.
Well, for 2 of those, it was pretty easy for you to pick. For one of them, there was only one option. Yeah. And Timothy Dalton only did 2, right?
Timothy Dalton did 2. I love both of them, but I love License to Kill even more. It's one of my favorites. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this show really isn't about me. It's about you mostly, and we're gonna go movie by movie, talk about your thoughts and feelings about them. And so I'm just here for information. I'm glad we mostly.
Yes, he's our human encyclopedia.
Indeed.
James Bond, our human James Wiki.
I'm a human version of the world of 007. I'm just gonna hold this for the rest of the time.
Just coddle it and you start petting Pierce Brosnan there. Yeah. That's who it is, right?
It is, yep.
Okay, cool.
And just before we get started, I have to say this, that I did try to make some effort into wearing something James Bond related, and I figured that's why you
had your old work shirt on.
I couldn't do it. The bigger ones are just, I have no idea where they are. They're just missing somewhere. So I have this one that can't even really button, but that's not the point. The point is I went with the Doctor Who shirt, right? It's British, and there's been a lot of them that played the same role.
I think that was a good way to preface it too, because so I only ever in passing, watched scenes of James Bond movies with my dad on TV here and there, a much worse version of the Scream situation. At least I'd seen 2 of them. Anyway, these ones I never really sat down and watched start to finish. Yeah. There are 6 of them, as we said, and the whole main gist of this one was to pick 6 from each of the 6 Bonds. So it was really weird to watch them that way, right? I had known there were different Bonds. I didn't know that there were 6 of them total. So it was almost like right when I got used to how this man portrays Bond, I get thrown a new one, and I got to learn a whole, not that they're similar, obviously, but there's a shitload of differences in how they act. So it was a little weird to but it was still really cool to see a new Bond each time. So I did want to mention that because I do have things to say about each Bond for each movie, obviously. And now, God, I don't know who my favorite is still. I'll tell you, it's between, I think it's down to between 3, and I'll let you know who those 3 are. Okay. At the end of the episode.
I'll be on the edge of my seat.
Yeah. So
starting off with Goldfinger, right? Goldfinger.
Okay, so some things that I have written down here, I noticed because I obviously wrote them down as I watched the movies. Mm-hmm. So some things are very recurring, and this is my first real James Bond experience. So this is kind of a real shallow view of it, just kind of what I noticed and everything. It kind of as I enjoy it, because I really did enjoy the movie. Spoiler alert. I really enjoyed the movie, so I ended up feeling more invested when I watched the next movies. So that's just kind of how I felt.
How you're not that about it.
I mean, but I knew it was the Sean Connery one, and that's just consistently a favorite Bond of a lot of people, because it's the introduction of the character,
right?
As my dad has let me know many times over. So that's kind of what I went. I wasn't expecting a really good Bond. And I got that. I love the way he talks. I love his accent, that slight, Scottish to it.
Brilliant.
Really cool. This one line from Austin Powers kind of like hit me. And it's not like funny. But it's during a funny scene when he's walking around the hotel like naked or whatever. And then Vanessa's on the phone with the mom, and then she was like, women wanted him and men want to be him. And I'm like, the whole time I'm watching this movie, holy fuck, I want to wear a tailored suit. I want I want a martini shaken not dead. Okay, I want to fucking be James Bond.
Yeah.
This is so awesome. Again, I see why you're surprised, because as a kid, I would have been all over this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what shocks me.
Yeah.
Shocking. Positively shocking.
So as I'm watching it, I'm watching him, he's with like the first girl of the movie, I believe. And that's when he smacks her ass very early on. And I'm like, damn. And I mentioned this at work too, so it's not like a shock, but it was a note that I made. He forces himself upon Pussy Galore at one point, right? I mean, I'm kind of watching this and I'm like, I can sort of see some of the modern day misogynist jabs people take at the character, which get addressed in some of the movies later on. One specifically, we'll talk about that later.
Yes,
but I do realize why he is called a womanizer. At first I was like, oh, this isn't too bad, but it went on. I'm like, he is really, I understand it's a script, things are supposed to go his way, but I mean, the way Sean Connery portrayed that Bond charm and the way the Bond girls would react, it's relatively believable. But that this spy is, who wouldn't want to be with James Bond if you're a girl, and who doesn't want to be? That is my whole point of that. So just a little bit of a ramble.
There's fellas out there too that I'm sure would love to be with James Bond.
So not to discriminate against anybody,
right? And 100%. It was a different time period. I hate to say that, but
yes,
it is true. And it is a little hard to watch, especially during the Pussy Galore scene. It seems like she doesn't want to partake in what he's dealing out, so to speak. And in the novel, she is a lesbian. So you keep that in the back of your mind as well, that she probably really doesn't want this to happen then. And he just sort of keeps pushing down on her as she's pushing at him and gives in. So it's a little weird.
Did she really give in because she wanted to? Was it the Bond charm, or was he just
even if she did
what
give
the guys
in because she wanted to?
I
think that that's still a really bad situation, because at first she was saying no. So, it's, you shouldn't really look at old movies through a modern lens, but sometimes it's hard not to. But
for sure.
But point well taken, for sure.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to say about Pussy Galore, and I mentioned this at work, but I want to say again for the podcast, my favorite line in that whole movie, and it might be my favorite Bond line of all 6 that I watched, was the, when she said, my name is Pussy Galore, and he just said, oh,
I must be dreaming.
Because the way he delivered the line was like, oh, there's no fucking way that's your name. That's ridiculous. And I didn't know that was her name. So right when she says it, I'm cracking up along with James Bond. So it was a nice little moment, really, it stuck out to me. I had to make sure that I wrote that down. I mentioned the Austin Powers references a little bit already.
There's even more in,
there's more that I want to mention in movies. Spy Who Loved Me. There's one specific moment that I think it was Spy Who Loved Me. I think we'll get to that.
Okay. I will say this,
because I didn't write it down, but I remember it.
The movie Goldfinger is a movie called Thunderball, and it starts off with James Bond punching a woman at a funeral, and it turns out it's a man. Yeah. Like, spoiler alert.
Wow, so that's a twofer because you get the one at the very opening of the first Austin Powers where it's clearly a girl and then it's a man with the 5 o'clock shadow in the second shot.
Yeah.
And then Basil's mom, which is funny.
Oh yeah, that is funny.
Yeah.
He's like,
it's my mother.
My dear widow Bouvier. I'm here to offer my condolences, and then he punches her in the face.
I've come to offer my sincere condolences. My dear Colonel Bouvard.
Oh, I can't wait to see it.
It's played by the stuntman Bob Simmons, so they fight each other. It's awesome. The guy's in a dress and stuff. Yeah, it's not supposed to be funny, but it is. Yes.
So as far as our villains for this one, I would say what I would think of a James Bond villain are like Goldfinger and I guess Oddjob, because the two, I mean, you know, obviously what's the name of the Oddjob parody in Austin Powers? I don't remember his name.
Random Task.
I forgot.
Yeah. But I'll take this opportunity because at first when you started that question, I thought you were going to ask like, what is Oddjob? And I was going to say that he is a henchman. So I guess he's not
really a villain.
No,
or is he still the villain?
There's a villain and then there's a henchman. There might be more than one henchman, but yeah, he's a henchman. Henchmen tend to have like something notable about their personality. His is that we'll
get to some other ones. I have some things to say.
Yes. Right. And 2 movies from now, there's another really notable henchman and so on and so forth. And that's not something that I expected you to know. It's more of a James Bond thing, but I figured I would throw that in. But yeah.
Okay, cool. So, but I did like Oddjob as the henchman, and Goldfinger was at first when I watched the movie, I thought he didn't really seem very threatening, you know, but as it goes on, and then, you know, he has like the gold suffocation paint, and then his love of gold becomes more apparent, and how it, you know, drives him to murder, basically, just to become richer. The scene, it was toward the middle of the movie, right, when he had him on the slab of gold, and then he was with the laser going up his crotch. That, you know, I've seen reenact. I don't know if Bond has been in that situation before, but that scene has been parodied so many times in so many different movies. It was cool to see it that way, and it was actually, obviously, you know, he's going to survive, but I think it was done well. I think at that point, Goldfinger did seem a little scary. You know, villains aren't scary, but it seemed threatening then at that point. You had the flip of a switch, this guy will fuck you up. But like it didn't seem like that on the surface for me. So and every time I want to do his accent, I just think of the accent that wasn't even the accent from when Mike Myers is doing Goldmember, which is
I love gold.
Which is nothing like Goldfinger, to tell you the truth. There's no similarity to me other than the love of gold. So I didn't catch
blonde hair.
Yeah. And he's
like, you expect me to talk?
To be honest.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. Like, to tell you like Count Dracula almost.
He reminded me of a skinnier fat bastard to be in terms of looks.
Yeah.
I'm dead.
But anyway, so that was just one thing. I did like Goldfinger and Oddjob. He's not my favorite. I have another favorite we'll talk about as we go on. But yeah, I think it was overall really, really enjoyable.
For sure. So now on to the next.
We're going to transition to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Starring the one and only, one time and only, George Lazenby as James Bond.
Indeed.
So I came up to Brandon after watching this movie at work, and I said to him, who the fuck is George Lazenby? I didn't know there was one guy who did James Bond one time, because I started watching the movie. I didn't, Operation Grand Slam. There we go. So anyway, I'm watching the movie and I didn't recognize the James Bond. So I went to the cast list and I saw George Lazenby. I never heard this name before. And then I found out through further research, he was only in one movie. Mm-hmm. So that was obviously my my first thing that I noticed. But something that I've noticed, beautiful. Something that I have also noticed after watching these 6 movies, question for you. So
yes,
obviously there's a different credit roll at the beginning of every movie. I have some that I prefer more than others. But before that, when they do the gunshot, that's in every movie. Is it this? Do they recycle the same shot and pose per actor per their version of the franchise?
It depends.
Okay.
I'm happy you asked. When it comes to certain actors, like Sean Connery had 2 of them his entire career in the role, and what's funny is his first gun barrel sequence, which is what it's called, is it wasn't even him, it was Bob Simmons, the stuntman.
Wow.
And then it was around, I don't remember exactly, but it was Thunderball, or it was You Only Live Twice, where they finally changed it to where it was actually Sean Connery. Roger Moore had 2 of them. George Lazenby only filmed 1, obviously. Yeah. And he's the only one that like kneels down when he shoots as well.
So that is my entire point by asking this question. Of the 6 that I watched, his was the fucking best. I just loved it. I didn't expect, I don't know, it was such a small thing that I wrote it down too. I don't know why, but I didn't expect him. He just gets down and bam. And then there was nothing cool for any of the other ones. It was all, he was the only one that just kind of did something different. The other ones were just kind of what you'd expect.
Get out of here. So I'm happy that you have a different opinion on it. I think it's
maybe it'll change after I watch more of that. I personally loved it. So
I will say
Fandoms is all about then, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I did enjoy that part of it. The intro credits are great. I love them for all of them. Whatever. So we start off the movie.
Yes, they are the there's always like the pre-credit sequence, where something cool happens
with the song.
And then the pre-credit sequence is always like, something James Bond doing something badass. Like it starts off with a gun barrel sequence, and then it moves into the pre-credit sequence, which is, in Goldfinger, for instance, it's James Bond like breaking into that building and with the wetsuit and the duck and and then murdering the guy and positively shocking. And then it goes into the actual title credits, or opening title sequence, I guess you could call it. And then that would be the actual like opening credits. And Maurice Binder was the man that formulated those openings. So naked women dancing and stuff.
There was one of them, God, I wish I would have wrote it down. It was one of this one or the one after it, where there was it was like the gymnasts, and one was on like a trapeze or something, and she was like doing this thing, and then it was like the most sexual, provocative pose of her ass and her like, I
believe it's
spreading.
A Spy Who Loved Me. I believe it's the next one.
Okay. And that intro really stuck out to me, because that's when I really realized, oh shit, these are a bunch of naked women. I can see nipples.
It was like this right here.
Yes, that's 100%. Yes, that one.
Yes. So what did you think of the song for this one? This was the only movie that didn't have lyrics to the song. Out of all the movies you watch, they all had lyrics.
This and isn't it? It's always a title song with the name of the movie. Was this the one that sounded kind of 70s, like in its music?
I don't know. I wouldn't say so. I say it sounds badass. It's my favorite. This is my favorite song of the entire series. Boom,
okay.
Boom, boom,
Insert song here.
Like, it's so cool. It's so cool. It doesn't have words. It's just straight
I guess
up.
I didn't really realize it then.
Just straight up awesome.
Now it'll stick out to me, of course.
Music. It inspired Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes. It sounds very similar to it. And the whole opening title sequence, it has the, it's showing scenes from all the other movies that came before this, sort of driving home the point that this is the same guy. We know that you haven't seen somebody else play this role before, but this is the same guy. So, yeah.
And with that being said, I mean, I think he's pretty damn good James Bond. I wouldn't mind seeing him again. He was fantastic.
I wish that we did. Yeah.
Anyway, so the beginning of the movie, he saves that woman from killing herself. The Italian bird, as I'm gonna call her.
Tracy.
Because it's a line, yes, Tracy. But I thought that was an interesting opening. So did he have no knowledge of who this woman was? I'm assuming he's just on the beach and just saw some random girl about to kill herself.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was a little confused at the opening, but then when you find out more about Tracy and her father, who was just weird as fuck in my opinion, he was so obsessed with when he said that line about she needs a man to dominate her. I'm like, that's your daughter you're talking about, you sick fuck.
What she needs is a man to dominate her, to make love to her enough to make her love him. A man like you.
And he was going to pay him $1 million to have an arranged James Bond marriage. Like, some women would think that she's the luckiest woman on earth. And then he still says no, but then continues to
keep in mind,
follow her around.
Let's take a step back when he's talking about dominating her. That's not dominating in a sexual way.
I get it, but it just the way it comes across.
It's even worse. It's dominating, like acting like,
to have her be subdued,
act like a parent to her. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, $1 million, geez. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on him, but what else points do I have here? And then
he fights in this movie. Some of the fight scenes are really cool. It's not something that we have necessarily have seen quite to this level before. Sean Connery fought people, but I don't know, it was different. It was sort of like they wanted to drive home how different and cool and little bit edgy this new James Bond was. So I mentioned to you that one day at work, I love this scene where he has been like abducted, and then he decides to attack his abductees, or abductors rather, before walking into the room, and he attacks them, and then he does a flip into the room with the knife behind his head, and it's a really awesome shot. And then he throws the knife and hits the calendar with it, and then that guy, Tracy's dad, is like, "Today is the 13th, not the 14th," and he's like, "I'm superstitious." Oh, yeah, so badass. So badass.
So what I think was badass was when James Bond is posing as the genealogist and gets into the research facility. I found that to be a nice little entertaining part of the movie.
Yes.
Those 12 girls that were there that were like under the influence of whatever to be like killers or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah, they're like hypnotized.
Yeah. What else did I like?
Let's talk about the villain of Blofeld.
I was just about, that's one of my points.
He's James Bond's arch enemy. So he is like, he shows up in more movies than any other villain.
As a main villain, or is he like
as a main villain? He's always played by a different guy. Here's a fun fact for you. Actually, this is gonna blow your friggin' mind.
Okay.
The first time we actually see Blofeld's face is in a movie called You Only Live Twice. It was actually before this movie, and it is played by the late great Donald Pleasance.
No shit.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. That's fucking awesome.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really enjoy, and obviously he looks like Dr. Evil, right? This version of Blofeld that's in On Her Majesty's Secret Service doesn't look so much like Dr. Evil, but that first version of Blofeld does for sure. And yeah, so I think Telly Savalas does good in that role. I think it's interesting how he's sort of like, he's very casual, almost like he's like friendly to James Bond almost. You almost don't get the idea that he's a villain right away.
Merry Christmas, 007.
I don't know. I've enjoyed that about it, but there's so many versions of Blofeld. It's like, whatever, pick your favorite kind of thing, you know?
Nice. I don't really have too much else to say about this movie other than it is sad that we didn't get to see more Lazenby. I did like him a lot. So I guess that'd really be my only complaint with that movie then, is that I would like to see him again. Yeah. So anything else you want to add about On Her Majesty's?
Nope. I love it. That's
Awesome.
about it.
Now, speaking of love, we're going to have to transition over to The Spy Who Loved Me.
Baby, you're the best.
The Spy Who Loved Me did have my favorite sequence at the beginning.
Okay.
I love the song. I liked the imagery in it. I liked it as Casino Royale is one of my favorites as well for the opening scenes. I remember being pretty amazed by that one. I thought it looked really cool, which is funny because that's a spoiler alert, or not really criticism, but something I noticed with the Skyfall one. But anyway, we're not talking about that one yet. So I like the intro. So we have this is the one that had, again, I hope I got it right. The fake out opening with Triple X laying with that guy, and then she gets like the phone call.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching it and I was thinking, all right, I've never seen George Lazenby before. I know this isn't Roger Moore. Who the fuck am I looking at? It turns out it wasn't James Bond. So I had a nice fake out there. It was very, for somebody who doesn't have knowledge of the series, I enjoyed that. So I had to make it a point. Which also, I guess I'll just lead into one of my next points is that I genuinely really like Triple X in general. I don't know, man. I think she's kind of a fucking badass.
Yeah.
She kind of looks like Heather Graham as Felicity Shagwell. So
I could see that a little bit. I mean, yeah. Yeah, she was played by Barbara Bach, Ringo Starr's wife.
Really? Huh. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very.
So she would be considered a Bond girl then, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good, because she's my favorite of the 6 movies that I've watched. So
okay, yeah, this is the point where they were starting to get more into, the whole like strong female leads a little bit, and so,
which is really good, because that's what I liked about this movie in particular, was that it was almost like there's somebody for Bond to keep up with, and it's not only that, it's a woman. Of course there's going to be some romance going on here and there. So I like the premise for it a lot. I think it showed some good dynamics of the character, I would say. I noticed something about The Spy Who Loved Me, though. As much as I'm enjoying it, it's a little sillier than the other James Bond movies that I've been watching. And that immediately, when I saw Jaws for the first time and he opened his mouth and I found out the premise for this character, I just fucking laughed. I'm gonna be honest
with
you. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm
Jaws
just saying
is
it was
iconic.
It was just a little silly, you know. Again, I know, trust me. But again, doesn't mean it was bad, because one of my next points was Stromberg. That's his name. All right, the villain of this movie.
Yeah, I'm happy that you brought him up. What do you have to say about him?
He was the one that wanted the underwater Atlantis city, right? So
and
he called up Kevin Costner.
He has webbed fingers and webbed toes, and it's a whole thing. I gotta be honest with you. I didn't want to, like, you know, potentially change your feelings on the villain at all. But this is my least favorite villain of almost the entire series. I love the movie, but I think that the villain is very forgettable.
Just silly. I don't know. Like, you have to suspend your disbelief for the James Bond movie, sure, but at least they're grounded in some seriousness. Do you know what I mean? This one is just like it's being self-aware.
It is. And what's funny is that it's one of the more serious Roger Moore movies as well. So
it was strange. I mean, he did a good job. It was a great Bond, actually.
Yeah, oh, totally. I think that this is his strongest performance out of all of his movies. He's always good. Sometimes he's a little goofy or a little, like, I don't know how to explain it. Just a little, he could be goofy for sure. Roger Moore sometimes would let his real life personality sort of bleed through, and he was a very, fun loving, goofy guy. But this is still, it's not so much the case with this movie. It's still on the more serious side of things. Mm-hmm. But as far as James Bond goes, rather, because for the villain, and obviously I'll admit that the character of Jaws is a little hard to believe, like he has these metal teeth, but I don't know, he's so iconic to me in the same way that Oddjob is iconic, and so many people that were in GoldenEye N64, Baron Samedi, and Max Zorin. He wasn't in it, but that was somebody that I knew about as well.
And so with that being said, everybody, is that I had a virgin experience for this. So I'm like I'm a fresh slate for this. So that's just what I observed. And then, I mean, as I watch it over time, things are going to change, so this is just a baseline, observation. So again, everybody, Brandon is the expert
for your childhood.
Why? I grew up knowing everything about Harry Potter and Tim Burton movies. I mean, that's a wonderful.
Oh, man. I don't know how you got around playing GoldenEye and for N64 constantly.
I played that game with my cousins a lot.
And you didn't remember any of the characters?
Oddjob was the one that always stuck out to me because he was the short one and he was easier to kill people with. But I mean,
like Oddjob, Jaws, Baron Samedi.
So I will end up mentioning GoldenEye when we get to GoldenEye. So I guess we'll save that for that part because I do have something to mention. I did write down for that. Something I noticed in this movie is that I didn't notice a score a lot of the times when Bond was fighting people. I don't know if it's like that in a lot of the other ones, but it was just silent like the whole time. And usually they're like in the Connery ones, there would be a mix of it being silent and then one would have, some score behind it. But I remember most of them in my memory, of course, like you said, the statute of limitations, it's always wrong. But I don't remember there being a lot of music during, the choreographed scenes in this one or just in general. So, because usually the soundtrack always sticks out to me for every movie. Kind of seemed a little more subdued in this one. I don't know. I could be wrong. Yeah, a good Roger Moore one. I love the Bond girl in it. Overall, it was very, very enjoyable Bond flick. So I don't have too much more to say about it.
A lot of fun. I have to say that a standout moment for me is the scene with Jaws in the desert, James Bond, Triple X, I believe, in that they're like in a van and Jaws is attacking the van. That's my favorite scene in the movie, and how he ends up like ripping off the side of the van as they drive away. And then they're like in the desert, like jumping around. I don't know, just it's a lot of fun.
When I saw, first of all, there's all the damage that he did because he like peeled off the side of it too, right? Like a fucking can opener.
Yes.
Yeah, and then so they're driving, and then Triple X is driving, right? And she's just taking every bump like at top speed.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I wish that the goofy music wasn't in there.
Come up
because there's like a like I wish that Roger Moore movies are kind of notorious for that. There's a really amazing car stunt that happens in the movie before this, the man with the golden gun, and it was like the person risked their life, I swear to God, to do this stunt. It was like they had to hit a ramp, and this ramp was like curved. It was like a corkscrew, and they literally hit this ramp with this car going full speed, corkscrewed the car across the river, and landed on the other side of the ramp that is also corkscrewed. And they ruined the stunt by putting a slide whistle in there.
No. Yes. The Halloween 5.
They did, and it pains me. It hurts me because it's like you just ruined that beautiful car stunt, which is amazing. You put some good music behind that, and it's like, my God, that would have been so cool because it is an amazing stunt. So on to I've got a license to kill.
License to Kill, one of 2 Timothy Dalton movies.
Indeed.
Before this movie, I always knew Timothy Dalton through the fame of his cherished character of Mr. Prickle Pants. Yep, he's right over there in the bottom left, and there's no way you'd be able to see him. He's right under...
I can feel his presence.
He's right under Buttercup's nose, which is to the left of the 3. The white little blurb is underneath.
I can't see.
He's there.
But I feel it.